Ever heard of a company setting up shop overseas and like completely missing out on huge opportunities?
Hmm.
I'm talking about those foreign factories
Right.
that often get treated like, well, just places to make things cheaper.
Yeah.
But what if I told you they could be so much more?
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're diving deep into how smart companies are turning these factories into like strategic gold mines.
Okay.
And joining me to break it all down is an expert who uh, lives and breathes this stuff.
It's all about perspective. You see a factory, I see, like a potential launch pad for global domination.
Okay.
Just kidding. Sort of.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So let's talk about those missed opportunities.
Sure.
What are companies getting wrong when it comes to their foreign factories?
Imagine this. A
Yeah.
company sets up a factory abroad solely focused on lower costs.
Mm-hmm.
They might get a short-term win,
Yeah.
but they're missing the bigger picture.
Yes.
Like using a smartphone just to make calls, you're missing out on a world of possibilities.
Right, right. So it's about more than just churning out products on the cheap. What should these companies be doing instead?
The best manufacturers view their foreign factories as sources of competitive advantage.
Okay.
Think about factors like specialized talent pools,
Yeah.
cutting-edge local suppliers,
Mhm.
even being close to emerging trends. All things that can turn a factory into a strategic asset.
So it's about leveraging those unique advantages that each location offers.
Exactly.
Do you have any examples of companies that are doing this really well?
Absolutely. Look at 3M.
Okay.
They have a facility in Bangalore, India,
Yeah.
a location known for its thriving tech scene and skilled workforce.
Mm-hmm.
3M doesn't just manufacture there. They've tapped into that local expertise to develop software, too.
Wow. So they're not just making products, they're building a tech hub.
Right?
That's smart.
Exactly. And then there's Xerox.
Okay.
They strategically located a production facility in Shanghai, one of China's pricier cities,
Interesting. Why?
because they wanted access to a highly skilled workforce and top-notch suppliers.
Okay.
They're willing to absorb higher upfront costs for long-term gains in innovation and productivity.
It's almost like they're treating these factories as mini headquarters with specialized roles to play.
That's a great way to put it. In fact, our research outlines 6 distinct strategic roles that foreign factories can play.
Wow.
These range from simple offshore production to becoming hubs of innovation.
6 roles. All right. You've officially piqued my curiosity. Let's break those down.
Okay.
What's the first one?
The first and most basic is the offshore factory.
Okay.
Think of this as your classic low-cost production site.
Mm-hmm.
Their main function is efficiently producing goods for export, mostly following instructions from headquarters.
So, kind of like a well-oiled machine following the blueprint. What can companies do to make the most of this type of factory, even if it seems pretty straightforward?
Even with an offshore factory, companies can optimize by building strong relationships with local suppliers and investing in training to boost workforce skills.
Okay.
Remember, efficiency is key here.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So what's the next step up from the offshore factory?
Next, we have the source factory.
Okay.
Like offshore factories, they prioritize low-cost production, but they have more autonomy.
More autonomy. You mean they have more decision-making power?
Exactly. Think of things like sourcing materials,
Right.
planning production, and even some level of product customization based on local market needs.
Okay, so a bit more freedom to adapt and make decisions locally.
Right.
What's an example of a company successfully using a source factory model?
Take a clothing company, for example.
Okay.
They might have a source factory in Southeast Asia where they produce basic garments.
Mm-hmm.
However, this factory also has the freedom to source fabrics locally and make small adjustments to designs based on regional preferences.
That's interesting. So even at this level, companies can benefit from giving their foreign factories a bit more ownership.
Right.
What about the next 2 roles?
Sure.
These sound like where things start to get really interesting.
You're right. This is where we start moving beyond just cost savings and into strategic advantage.
Okay.
The next 2 roles are server factories and contributor factories.
All right, before we dive into those, let's quickly recap for our listeners.
Okay.
We've covered offshore factories, which are all about efficient, low-cost production,
Right.
and source factories, which have a bit more autonomy in sourcing and production.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, server factories cater specifically to regional markets.
Okay.
They're all about overcoming those logistical and trade barriers that can make global business tricky.
So they're like Regional hubs, making sure products are readily available to specific markets.
Precisely.
Okay.
A great example is a car manufacturer that sets up a server factory in South America to avoid import tariffs and better serve the local demand.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. What about contributor factories? What makes them stand out?
Contributor factories have a more active role in the company's overall innovation strategy.
So they're not just producing existing products, they're contributing to the development of new ones.
You got it. They might customize products for local markets, test out new technologies, or even provide feedback and ideas to the main R&D team.
So they're like a valuable source of on-the-ground insights and innovation.
Yeah,
Do you have an example of a company that's really rocking the contributor factory model?
absolutely. A great example is a software company that has a contributor factory in Eastern Europe. They might have a team there that's not only adapting their software for local languages, but also developing new features based on the needs of that market. Those features could then be rolled out globally.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
Okay, we've covered 4 roles so far, ranging from basic production to active contribution.
Right.
What about the final 2?
Sure.
You mentioned these are where things get really next level.
You're right. This is where we see companies leveraging their foreign factories for true global leadership. The final 2 roles are outpost factories and lead factories.
Those names sound intriguing. What makes an outpost factory different?
Outpost factories are all about information. They're strategically placed in areas with cutting-edge suppliers, active competitors, or renowned research institutions.
So it's less about what they're producing and more about what they're learning.
Exactly. Think of them as the company's eyes and ears on the ground, constantly gathering intel on new trends, technologies, and competitor activity.
So being in the right place to soak up all that valuable information.
Right.
That's pretty clever. What's a real-world example of an outpost factory in action?
Imagine a fashion brand that sets up an outpost factory in Italy, not primarily for manufacturing, but to be close to the renowned design houses and fabric mills. This allows them to stay ahead of trends, spot emerging designers, and maybe even snag exclusive materials.
That's a fantastic example. So they're tapping into that creative energy and expertise that Italy is famous for.
Yeah.
Okay, we've reached the peak of the mountain, the lead factory. What makes this role so special?
Lead factories are the crown jewels.
Okay.
They're tasked with driving innovation for the entire organization. These factories have the expertise, the resources, and the freedom to develop entirely new processes, products, and technologies.
Wow, so they're not just keeping up, they're leading the charge. This completely changes the game for where innovation can happen within a company.
It certainly does, and this goes against the traditional view of separating development and production.
Right.
In today's fast-paced global market, companies need to innovate quickly and efficiently wherever that talent and inspiration exist.
Okay, I have to hear an example of a lead factory in action.
Sure.
This sounds pretty revolutionary.
Imagine a renewable energy company that establishes a lead factory in Scandinavia, a region known for its expertise in sustainable technologies. This factory isn't just assembling solar panels, it's partnering with local universities, attracting top engineers, and potentially developing the next generation of solar technology.
That's incredible. They're not just making products, they're shaping the future of the entire industry.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these different roles can completely change the game for companies. But I imagine it takes more than just deciding, okay, we're going to have a lead factory in Germany. What are some of the things companies need to consider when implementing these strategic roles for their foreign factories?
You're absolutely right. It's not a simple flip of a switch. One of the biggest factors is talent. You need the right people in place to make this work. Companies need to invest in training their workforce, giving them opportunities to grow, and empowering them to take ownership of their roles.
So it's about creating an environment where people feel valued and empowered to contribute their best work.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just skills training. Companies need to foster a culture of innovation, a willingness to experiment, to learn from mistakes, and to embrace new ideas, no matter where they come from.
That makes a lot of sense. If you want people to be innovative, you have to create an environment that encourages that kind of thinking.
It's not just about telling people to come up with brilliant ideas.
Yeah.
It's about building a system and a culture that supports that.
Precisely. And communication is crucial. You need open lines of communication between headquarters and the foreign factories, and not just top-down communication. It needs to be a two-way street where feedback is welcomed and ideas can flow freely.
So breaking down those silos and fostering a more collaborative approach to global business.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that innovation can come from anywhere, from any level of the organization. And when you tap into that collective intelligence, that's when you start to see truly groundbreaking results.
It's like that old saying, none of us is as smart as all of us.
Exactly. And that's never been truer than it is in today's interconnected world.
This has been really eye-opening. We've gone from factories as just cost-saving measures to seeing them as like potential innovation hubs.
Yeah.
But let's get practical. If a company is listening to this, excited about the possibilities, what are the first steps?
Sure.
How do they actually start making this shift?
It starts with taking a step back and really looking at your current operations.
Okay.
Ask some tough questions.
Okay.
Like, are your foreign factories seen as integral to your strategy or just a place to churn out goods?
So a bit of honest self-assessment before diving in.
Exactly. Once you've got a clear picture, you can start building a roadmap.
Okay.
This might mean investing in new technologies, upskilling your workforce, or even restructuring how you manage these factories.
It sounds like it could involve some pretty significant changes.
It can, but the payoff is worth it.
Yeah.
Remember, we're talking about unlocking potential that's often just sitting there untapped.
Okay, so let's say a company has assessed their situation, they're ready to make some changes. What are some concrete steps they can take?
One of the most important is building bridges.
Sure.
Encourage knowledge sharing between your headquarters and foreign factories. Send teams on exchange programs.
Right.
Implement mentorship initiatives, anything to facilitate that cross-pollination of ideas.
I love that, cross-pollination of ideas.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about headquarters imparting knowledge. It's about those foreign factories sharing their unique insights and perspectives.
Exactly. Create an environment where everyone feels valued and heard, regardless of where they sit on the map.
It's about tapping into that collective intelligence we were talking about. Now, you mentioned upskilling the workforce earlier. Can you elaborate on that? What kind of training and development are we talking about?
It depends on the company and the industry, but it could be anything from technical skills to language training to leadership development. The key is to equip your employees with the tools and knowledge they need to contribute at their highest level.
So it's not just about training them for their current roles. It's about preparing them for future opportunities, for taking on more responsibility and driving innovation.
You've got it. And it's not just a one-time thing. It needs to be an ongoing commitment to their professional growth.
This all makes so much sense. But I imagine there might be some resistance to change. Companies are used to doing things a certain way, and this is a pretty significant shift in mindset. What advice would you give to companies facing that kind of internal pushback?
It's all about communication and leadership.
Okay.
Clearly articulate the vision, explain the why behind the changes, and get everyone on board with the long-term goals.
So paint a picture of what success looks like and how these changes will benefit everyone involved.
Exactly. And celebrate the wins along the way.
Yeah.
When those foreign factories start contributing new ideas, hitting ambitious targets, make sure those successes are recognized and celebrated throughout the organization.
That's so important because success breeds success. And when people see that their efforts are valued and making a real difference, it creates a positive feedback loop.
Absolutely. It all comes back to building a culture of trust, collaboration, and shared purpose.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I
I
feel like
agree with
we've
that.
barely scratched the surface of this topic, but we've covered so much ground. To wrap things up, what's one key takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with today?
If you take anything away from this conversation, let it be this. Your foreign factories have the potential to be so much more than just production sites. They can be engines of innovation, sources of strategic advantage, and key drivers of your company's success. Don't underestimate them.
That's a powerful message. And I think it speaks to a larger point about the interconnected nature of our world today. The most successful companies in the years to come will be those that embrace a truly global mindset, recognizing that talent, innovation, and opportunity can come from anywhere.
I couldn't agree more. It's an exciting time to be in business, and those who embrace this global perspective will be the ones shaping the future.
Absolutely. So to our listeners, as you go about your day, we challenge you to look at the world with fresh eyes. Think about the products you use, the companies you admire, and ask yourself, how are they leveraging the power of global collaboration and strategic thinking to thrive in this interconnected world? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.